Good afternoon, MFHL and Saskatchewan female AAA U18 Hockey League fans. It's Graham the G Show Forsyth, your host as always for this podcast. Welcome to the MFHL podcast, episode 18, 2024 SO Cup West Regional special. That's what this is. It's going to be a lot of fun, lots to get into in this episode to get you ready for game one of this best of three tonight at the Hockey for All Center. This episode brought to you by McCann Fasteners and Tools, your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. Be sure to check out their store locations in Brandon and Winnipeg today, as well as visiting their website at mccannfasteners.shop. We're also brought to you by Terrico, serving Manitoba producers for over 80 years in the agricultural industry. Be sure to check out their website to find out why at terrico.ca. And to Goaltenders, your goalie's personal video review service. Be sure to check out their website for more details at GordyTummelsonGoalies.ca. Speaking of a goaltender, we got one joining the show today from the MFHL, the champions in the Winnipeg Ice. Their starter and Laura Melissa has had a chance to connect with her a few days ago. Kim Perik is also joining the show, head coach of the Regina Rebels. And before all that, we got an MFHL representative joining the show in Ferdy Nelson. Got to give him props. He went perfect on his MFHL playoff predictions. I only missed one. Sorry, Winnipeg Ice fans, again. I chose against you. Shouldn't have done that. This is just a team of destiny. 18 straight playoff wins for them. Back-to-back perfect runs in the playoffs to end up in this place again. And for the Regina Rebels, well, man, 24-game win streak for them. Are you kidding me? It's going to be a fantastic series. And joining me to talk about it, to preview it, will be Ferdy Nelson first up here on the MFHL podcast. Enjoy, everybody, in this Manitoba-Saskatchewan crossover episode. Brought to you by McCann Fasteners and Tools, Terrico, and Goaltenders. Ferdy Nelson joining the show first up here on West Regionals edition as we preview this series. Coming up, it's starting tonight on gshow.ca, on G-Show Productions. Ferdy, we talked about predictions last time we linked up, and you went 100%. I was one off. Of course, I predicted the Westman Wildcats to win it all. You predicted the Ice. I mean, what a run from the Winnipeg Ice, though. A second undefeated run in the league, 18 straight playoff wins. I know you were there to watch all the finals games, give out the awards. Talk about what that was like seeing, the defending champs go to work again, going back to back.
Well, they were obviously the best team from start to finish. Throughout most of the year, they had a little glitch there at one point in the regular season, but from the net out, their defense core is so strong and deep. They've got three lines. They roll hard at you, right? It's they're a tough team to play against. I got to say that I thought, as much as they swept the Wildcats came out in every game and generally controlled a lot of the tempo to start with. But just couldn't make the most out of it. And the games were tight, overtime and everything else. But they just had a little too much for anybody in the league this year.
Yeah, and had a chance to tune into game two on the Westman Wildcats YouTube channel. And Westman, they ended up having a lead late in that game, and Winnipeg just punches back. It seemed like that was truly the difference, too. No matter when teams would punch at the Winnipeg Ice, they would respond in a magnificent fashion. I mean, not all of their wins in the playoffs were blowouts at all. There were a lot of one-goal games. So, I mean, just to see that happen for them, to have that type of consistency, I mean, I feel like that's what really ended up putting them over the top. But talk about, I mean, Stephanie Jacob, Brienne Comte, a bunch of the top end players stepping up for the Ice when they needed to.
Well, especially Brienne. I mean, she ended up being second in the playoffs in total points. That's who we selected as the playoff MVP from a defense position. Not often happens. Usually in the playoffs, it's a forward that's popping in a ton of points, which Jacobs did lead the playoffs, but she was only one ahead of uh, uh, Compte, and or a goaltender that's stands on their head and carries a team. But Brienne was really solid back there. She makes good decisions. She moves the puck out of her own end well, and obviously she jumps in and contributes offensively, which you're going to need from your back end in today's game, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. She really did seem like she elevated her game on a D core that's so stacked already with Avery Lazarenko and Caitlin Moffitt. Brienne really stepping up to the plate throughout these playoffs. But to Laura Melissa, I mean, she ends up being the backup last season throughout the playoffs,
Yeah.
not starting. She comes back. I mean, she was the Winnipeg Ice playoff MVP the season beforehand when they end up making it to the finals and losing. For Laura to step up the way she did, not only in the semifinal series, but big time in that game 3. Talk about how much of a difference you felt that really made for the Winnipeg Ice as well.
Oh, well, you're going to have goaltending in the playoffs. I mean, there's no doubt about it that goaltending is critical throughout the year, but in the playoffs, it's the games get tight, and if you give up bad goals or you don't have that kind of goaltender that can make the save when you really need it to turn the tide, you're probably not going to do well. And Laura gave them that. She gave that to them 2 years ago, and then last year somebody else stepped up for them, but this year she stepped right back into it. And you know what? Her regular season was strong. Nine. I think she was over 930 for save percentage, and obviously on a team that only doesn't give up much. Her goals against was probably like just under 1.5. But she had a really good, and her stats were even better in the playoffs. Like,
Yeah.
she stepped up, and it wasn't like teams weren't getting opportunities. I mean, they don't give up a lot of shots, but she had the one thing about the Ice when they push up the ice because they're an offensive
Yeah.
sort of geared team. They like to get up the ice as a group of five. Sometimes they leave their back end a little bit open, and that's when you have to make the save. And she sure did.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I mean, the Winnipeg Ice go up against a team in the Westman Wildcats that were a top 2 defensive team in terms of defensive core this season. The wins leader in Danica Averill in the net, a lot of depth up front. A team that defended really well against the Rush, especially in that Eastman Select series. Obviously, Tony Franklin being his first year as a head coach in this league, going up against a bit of a veteran in Eugene Kaminsky. Talk about, the coaching styles of both these teams and how Eugene was able to, guide this team to a back-to-back championship.
Well, Eugene's been through this for a number of years now. So, Eugene's teams play a very structured game. He likes to have. I think you look at his teams over the years. He likes to base it on speed. He doesn't care about the size of the player. He likes to have speed up front. He likes to have competitive players that'll are hard on the forecheck, like to go to the dirty parts of the ice and get the pucks to the net. Um, the Wildcats have always been a program that has skilled players. Um, uh, Tony Franklin may be his first year in the league, but Tony's coached a lot of hockey.
Yeah.
And for someone to step in the way he did, and under the circumstances he did, was he did an outstanding job there. Their coaching staff did an outstanding job. So, because Guy Williams had to step away for health reasons, and that's always tough on a team, right? And I commend the Wildcats. They came back there in the second half of the season when they were, first half wasn't probably as good as a lot of people expected them to be, but then they stepped up really hard in the second half and were really made a good run through the second half of the season and the playoffs. So
Yeah.
Tony had them playing disciplined hockey. Were strong on the forecheck. They've got speed up front. Their defense core is, you're talking about, probably, in my opinion, I think yours too, Graham, the 2 best deep cores in the league.
Yeah.
And that's huge. I always say, for me, it always starts in your own end. And when you have those kind of D cores, you can make good things happen up the ice.
Yeah, and I mean, all the credit in the world to Tony Franklin and his staff this season for, I mean, guiding this Westman Wildcats team, like you said, to one of the best records in the league as the season went along. They finished second and make it back to a third straight final. Now, Westman's going to be losing some key players, but they're going to
Yep.
be getting some key players back. Most notably, players like a Callie Hillhorst on the back end, Ivy Perkin, who was second in the league in goals this season. Danica Averill is going to be back. But as for this Westman Wildcats team, I mean, do we feel like there could potentially be a chance with how much skill has come out of that program that they could be in the mix again, being contenders again next season?
Yeah, for sure. If you know, like it depends who's coming up through the program below them and that can fill the roles. But they seem to have depth out there, and they seem to find a way. There's talented. I thought Hillhurst was a force back there for them in the whole playoffs. I mean, they have good defense with Franklin and everything else. I mean, but Hillhurst was as noticeable as anybody back there. So that they can build a great decor around that, and like I say, it's I don't think they'll ever be far off. They just seem to find a way to make a competitive team.
Yeah, and speaking of Hillhorse, she ends up leading this team in points throughout the playoffs, which is pretty phenomenal from a back end player. A lot of great defensemen coming out and showing their stuff in these playoffs. This season, Ferdy, I mean, before the playoffs started, even Eugene Kaminsky said it, and I'll come back to it. He felt there were 6 teams that would be able to contend for a championship. Now, all the favorites ended up winning in these series, but there were a lot of close games throughout these playoffs. From a league's perspective, talk about how pleasant it was to see, competitive games really throughout the whole postseason this year, even dating back to, I mean, the Winnipeg Ice sweeping the Central Plains Capitals, where they keep them to a 1-goal win and pretty close in those games after the first.
Well, that series is a perfect example. The game in Portage, I went to that game. That game was nothing with 3 minutes to go in the game, and Central Plains had several chances to actually win that game or go ahead. I'm not saying if they score that the Ice don't come back, but and that was the only game that Laura Melise didn't play. and and it ended up being a 1-0 shutout for the Ice. And of course, it was Jacobs that ended up finding a way to score with under 3 minutes to go in the game off of a rush, and it's what she does. And it was actually kind of a fluky goal. They got lucky. It hit. It was directed towards the net and hit one of the Caps defensemen in the back of her skate and changed directions on Dembo and found the corner of the net. So yeah, when you see those, an eighth place team giving a first place team that kind of a game in a playoff game and forcing them to be their best right in the first round, that's what makes a league good. That's what makes players develop. That's critical to all of these players finding a way to play at the next level.
Yeah. And even in that series, Interlake and Eastman, I mean, those were really close games up until the last one where Eastman was finally able to really break through on them. But Interlake looked like the better team in some of those games and ended up being rewarded, of course, with a double OT victory in that game 3. The Yellowhead Chiefs going down 2-0 to the Winnipeg Avros and being able to string together 3 straight wins. Westman, I mean, they sweep Pembina Valley in the first round, but Pembina Valley takes them to double OT and holds them to close games for the first 2. So, yeah, even though there were, sweeps, 4 in total, 3 of them going
I don't think they were easy
they
series.
weren't easy series at
No,
all.
they
And I
weren't.
think that speaks a lot about how much these teams are growing the talent throughout this league. I guess looking forward to next year a bit, Ferdy. We'll get a take from you here before we move on to talking about the Winnipeg Ice's upcoming series against the Regina Rebels. Which team are you looking forward to the most in terms of maybe an Eastman Selects or even an Interlake Lightning on seeing what they can do to build next year and potentially do even better?
Well, I look at the bottom. two or three of the bottom teams in the league. Like Central Plains only loses 3 players. Now, can they build around that? Can they, I coach the U15 team out here, and there's probably 5, 6 girls that can step up and help that team next year. That's critical. But Interlake has developed a team. It'll be interesting next year without Halderson, but Jane Sugimoto had a great year for them. I think she was underappreciated. She was very good for them in net. They will be a competitive team. Eastman Selects for me was by far the biggest. I don't want to know if I want to use surprise so much, but I don't know what other word to use. But by far, if I was going to give a Coach of the Year award out, I might give it to Todd Mason because that team has, for the last dozen to so years, has never been out of the bottom of the league for a big region. And on a couple of occasions were the worst team. And I would think one year didn't even win a game. And for him to get this program, and I know they've won a championship, but they were a 5th-place team when they did that. And they rode a goalie named Kirk to the championship. They weren't actually that strong a team, but they had an outstanding goaltender. But this year, that team, the entire team, the compete, the hustle, the way they operated their systems, they bought in. And he talked to me early in the season out here in Portage at the showcase I run, and he said if he could get the girls to buy in, he thought they could have this kind of year, and he did. He got them to buy in, and so they don't lose a lot, and that team could be a team to reckon with next year, especially if they get the same kind of goaltending, and they've got some quality players coming up from the U15 program. Because I had to coach against them. They were the only, they were the best team in the regular season all year at the U15 level. So I think Eastman is a team to watch as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Of course, the Winnipeg Avros, I feel like going to be
Yeah,
a year older. The players returning to that's going to be a team to watch. But I mean, looking at the Eastman selects, right? You're losing Ginger Fast. You're losing
yeah.
players like Ava Boyley, Cassie Lesage. Like all the players from that leadership group are going to be
But
leaving.
like I say,
You're going to have players stepping up. You're going to have the best
yeah.
goaltending tandem, arguably back in Tomes and Kennedy next
Well,
season. You still got players like Heidinger there. Shan Scott Cook had a fantastic year for her
yep.
standards. Isabella Carrier as well. So I mean, this
Remelards.
yeah, the Emelards are going to
There's
be back. So this team,
there's some depth there, and like I say, they've got some quality players. They've got 2 or 3 forwards. They had the top line at the U15 level, and they had a couple of the top D in the league award winner. They had the top goaltender, which is going to be a concern. Right there, that's a nice problem to have. It's a nice problem to have, and
mm,
I think they're starting to benefit from that.
yeah, and I mean with Todd Mason back, there's been progression since he's taken over with this program, getting them to
Coaching's huge.
place. And they only lose out because of that tie break against the Westman Wildcats. So
Yep.
yeah, definitely in agreement with you there, Ferdy, that watch out for the Eastman selects next season. But as for the Winnipeg Ice, I mean, talked about it. Their players have kind of alluded to it when I've well, they've said it when I've asked them about it, is that they've been motivated to get back to this spot. They draw the same opponent as last season, the Regina
Yeah.
Rebels, who were fantastic this year. They're currently riding a 24-game win streak heading into this one. The MFHL, by the statistics, a lot more competitive on paper, but we know how good the Saskatchewan League, the teams that they produce,
Yeah.
especially the top ones. Just first off, looking at both of these teams, what do you expect? I mean, the best of the best going at it. Are we going to see 2 hard-fought close games or 3 close games this season?
Well,
For your first thought.
if last year's series was any indication, both games were decided in overtime. I mean, they both went to the Rebels, but both games were decided in overtime. And so I look at these two teams; both don't give up much. I looked at the regular season stats. They both average about 23 shots a game given up. They the Rebels are a more offensive team, more so this year than last year. Last year they were very close in numbers. I think it was like 138 goals regular season for Regina, 134 or something for the Ice. This year, the Ice haven't scored as much. Now you lost Braun and you didn't expect it maybe, but they score about 3.25 goals a game. Regina scores at 5 goals a game. They've got it. They're offensively minded. Um, so it's going to be imperative for that decor that we talk about that is so good to really be good against Regina. And a part of being good against another team is not spending a lot of time in your own end. So getting back, making good decisions, getting the puck up the ice. The one thing I've always liked about Winnipeg, and I watched Regina a little bit online, and they seem to roll top two lines a little bit more than they roll a third or fourth, but and they carry more play. Winnipeg Eugene rolls his lines.
Yeah.
He doesn't fear rolling his lines, and his players are pretty fresh when they get to the third period. I think this is going to be a wide open series. It's going to be physical. It's goaltending will be huge. And again, when you looked at the goaltending numbers, they almost mirrored each other. You know, Tresic for Regina, Tresic has a 1.43 goals against regular season. Malise 1.48, 9.437, 9.34 save percentage, 9.40 save percent. Like these teams really mirror each other. It's going to be come down to breaks, I think, and who limits their mistakes, because both teams are going to be under pressure when it comes to strong forechecks from the other team, and both teams I think are good off the rush. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch. I plan on being at all the games, and a really interesting fact about the Manitoba Saskatchewan series is it's only ever gone 3 games once in all the history of it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Whoever usually wins the first game is usually set to take the series the way it's gone. But hey, history can always be changed, right? So the Ice are going to have to limit their mistakes that they made last year in the last 4 to 5 minutes of the game. Last year they had complete control of that second game and turned over the puck in their own end when they really didn't have to. And those kind of mistakes, that's how Regina turned it around and tied up that game in the last with the net empty, and then they lose in overtime. So limiting those mistakes and making good decisions and playing sound positional hockey is going to be critical in this series, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a huge advantage for the Ice, I'm gonna look at too, obviously having, the games here in Winnipeg
Yeah,
instead, but going through more like even though this was the best team in the league this season, they went through adversity. There were a bit of dips throughout the season where some teams gave them trouble, but the Ice, like the playoffs, they always seem to find a way to close teams out, no matter if it was blowing teams out on the scoreboard or winning in close games. I feel like that could be huge in this series coming up. But I had a chance to speak to the Regina Rebels head coach and Kim Perik,
mm-hmm.
and I mean which an interview will be shown of him and myself later on in this episode to end things off. But that wasn't the original coaching staff to start the season. So the fact that this team in Regina was able to fight through that adversity as well as going through that first round, like they get a bye to the semifinals. That's how it works
Yeah,
in the league. Shorter series, best 2 out of 3, and Battleford's gave them a run for their money as Regina
at
went
2 1 goal games.
2 1 goal games. So both teams have faced adversity. It's going to come down to, I think, like you said, which teams can limit the mistakes more. And I think how the game breakers are going to come through. This is going to be a series where can a player like Stephanie Jacob rise to the occasion? And I think we expect that from what we've seen from her. But can the other top guns step up for the Winnipeg Ice as well? I
Yeah,
that this is going to be a really fantastic series where it could go either way, but I think it is huge. Regina has returning players, but the Winnipeg Ice, they're returning players. They went through that last year. They know what more to expect compared to last year, compared to this year. And I think that it's going to make for some really entertaining hockey coming up this weekend at the hockey.
No, I think it is going to be very exciting hockey. I think if anybody hasn't seen female hockey at the U18 AAA level, this would be a good opportunity to go out and watch two outstanding programs, two outstanding teams. The pace is going to be fast. The skill is there. It's going to be fun hockey to watch. Hopefully the players perform at their best, because sometimes you get a little nervous, but if these two teams play up to their potentials, we're going to have an outstanding series, because they're the cream of the crop in both their leagues. They were start to finish front runners, and I think the two best teams in either province have made it to where they are.
No doubt about it. I think for all the returning players coming back from last year's teams to this year, maybe they had a little conversation at the end of last year, Freddie, like, "Hey, this was fun. Let's do it again next year in Winnipeg. Hey, girls." And
Well, this
I think
is
we're here.
this is I'm wearing my, you can't see it, but the SO Cup. When I when I was coaching U18 and we won, we got to go to the SO Cup.
Yeah.
It was the last time Manitoba went to the SO Cup out of province. Pembina Valley has hosted it, but it's time for Manitoba to get back there. Like, we have won two national championships, but Regina has had the better of us for a while here, and I think the Ice are a team that could change that trend.
I agree. I agree. But we won't know until we play the games, and that's why we do play the
Yeah.
games, Freddie. It's going to be exciting. The best on best in the prairies. A shot to go to the Esso Cup on the line in Vernon, BC, coming up later this month. Ferdy, thanks for the time, and sure we'll see
Yeah.
you around at the rink this weekend.
Yeah, my pleasure. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for what you do, bud.
And Ferdy Nelson joining this edition of the MFHL podcast, Esso Cup West Regional Edition for this year in 2024. And yeah, I mean, this is going to be one heck of a series this weekend coming up. Coverage starts tonight on gshow.ca. Puck drop at 7:30 at the Hockey for All Center here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And yeah, as for the Winnipeg Ice, undefeated throughout the playoffs. As you could see there, a sweep in the first round, shut out the Capitals in every one of those games, as well as shutting out the fourth place team in the league in the Yellowhead Chiefs, and of course beating the Westman Wildcats in part 3 of that final, since they played each other 3 years in a row this year, as that mark that accomplishment by both teams making it to the finals. But it was the Winnipeg Ice sweeping their way to the finals, not to the finals, throughout the finals into the West Regional to set up a rematch between them and the Regina Rebels. And yeah, as for Laura Melissa, as Ferdy Nelson talked about, her save percentage in the regular season, a .934 save percentage, elevated her game in the playoffs and went a perfect 8-0. I had a chance to talk to the goaltender from the MFHL champions in the Winnipeg Ice, in Laura Melissa, about what the season's been like, her journey with the Winnipeg Ice, since she is a senior and will be aging out this upcoming series in the West Regionals, and also the moment that her team ended up winning the MFHL championship for a back-to-back season. Join me now in welcoming in Laura Melissa, number 30, starting goaltender of the Winnipeg Ice. And it's number 30 of the Winnipeg Ice, this year's starting goaltender throughout the playoffs, and Game 3 championship MVP, as we named her on G Show Productions. It's Laura Melissa. Laura, great to have you on the show. Your team, the job isn't done yet. Upcoming West Regional series coming up against the Regina Rebels starting on Friday, a best of three series. What's the feeling around the team? Getting another shot at this Regina Rebels team to try to qualify to the ESO Cup.
Yeah, I think everyone's pretty excited right now. It's gonna be a tough series, so we're trying to prepare for that. But I think everybody's just trying to like work on little skills and stuff to make sure we're all prepared. And I think, yeah, everybody's really excited. So it should be a good series.
Of course, goaltenders prepare a bit differently compared to forwards and defense. What's gone into your preparation? Has it been the same thing as you've been following all season long?
Yeah, so for me, I go to Ice Lab and I have one-on-one goalie sessions. And for me, nothing changes, is what my coach always says. So from regular season to playoffs, it's just a game. You got to play it the same. Nothing really changes. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely worked out for you this season. I mean, going 8-0 in the playoffs, coming up huge in those back-to-back elimination games to send this team through a shutout against the Yellowhead Chiefs in the semifinals, only allowing one goal in that 2-1 game three against the Western Wildcats. Talk about what it's been like to see your work pay off at the highest level for your team so far this year.
Yeah, I mean it's been really exciting. Like this team has also been really good. I've had a lot of help from my teammates to clear rebounds, which just makes it a lot easier for me to succeed. But yeah, it's been good.
Heading back to last year, of course, the whole team ends up earning the championship, but you took a back seat to goaltender Jordan Nepenick Sargent. Getting your shot this season. What were some of the things you learned from, sitting back and watching during those playoffs to use it to your benefit this year?
Yeah, there's always something you can learn whether you're playing or not. I like last year on the bench, like I learned that like even though I'm not playing, I can still participate and help the team forward, always being positive. And it helped me to kind of pick up on other things that the other team was doing. Because I wasn't focused on stopping shots, I could watch the other goalie. So I kind of kept doing that this year, just kind of like talking to my teammates like, hey, like maybe try this. So I think that was one thing that I learned last year that helped a bit this year. So
Yeah, and of course, you become the true veteran in the crease this season compared to a rookie goaltending partner for yourself and Bailey Grunwald. What's that relationship and like that dynamic? Being the starter and I guess mentoring a goaltender that could very well be the starter next year for this Winnipeg Ice team.
yeah, it's been good. Bailey is great. We actually played the COVID year, we played on Vix together. So we already kind of knew each other going into it. But I think it's been a really good season. Like we've become good friends and we're always pushing each other to be better. So I know I've improved a lot this season because Bailey has been pushing me to do so. And I feel like I've also pushed her a bit just to like get her ready for next year to be that starter.
Right, for sure. And Bailey, of course, having a great season for herself in this rookie year. But as for yourself, I mean, your first year with this team was back in 2021, 2022. Ended up losing in the finals that season to the Western Wildcats. You end up winning your team's playoff MVP awarded by the Winnipeg Ice. Now we're at this point where you're in your final year and now a champion in the MFHL for a second year in a row, going for much more, of course. But speak about what the experience has truly been like in your development, how much you've changed as a goaltender, or have things kind of just stayed the same?
I think for me, like a lot of it, my mental game has improved. Um, I feel like in my first year, especially like if something kind of went wrong, like I didn't know how to handle that. So it was kind of more of like an emotional end to the game.
Right.
Whereas now I feel like I'm a little bit more calm and like collected, like I don't let it show because I feel like if I'm too emotional, then I don't get to play my game properly. But I have loved playing on this team and I think I've improved a lot and made some really good friends.
Yeah, and you can really see it. I mean, just being there this season and seeing it through social media, it seems like this team really does have a really strong, special bond with each other. And I mean, you don't win 18 straight playoff games without having that type of special group that
Mhm.
girls have had. Talk about that. I mean, you spoke about how your mental game improved. Have you seen that, witnessed that from throughout this whole team as time has gone along?
Yeah, I feel like, especially over the season, it was a bit of a tougher season. There was a lot more close games. I think we did a really good job of like bouncing back if we were down or like had a bad play. I think, yeah, the team's mental game has definitely improved to where the point where if we're down, like we don't give up and we're ready to go and get that next goal.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because even though this team ends up finishing a place higher this year compared to last year, there were a lot more closer games, a bigger target on this team's back, of course, being the champs. Do you feel like these type of experiences, as from a player's standpoint, is could be potentially the difference in a series coming up against the Regina Rebels, where last season it was two one-goal games where this team lost. How big do you feel the benefits will be in that aspect coming up?
Yeah, so Regina's definitely going to be a tough series, and I feel like these closer games during, like, the league play will help a lot because there was a few times where we were down, which I can imagine will happen with Regina at some point. So just being able to come back and, like, keep going for that next goal and not giving up will be really important.
We'll touch more on the upcoming West Regional in just a moment. Got to ask you about, I mean, what that was truly like being able to go back to back, win a championship again this season, taking back to the moment when your teammates piled on you when that final buzzer rang.
Yeah, no, it was definitely really exciting. I Yeah, I have no words. I was so excited. I think the team was really excited because everybody wanted it so bad. And, like, the Westman's credit, they played an amazing series. Like, it definitely was not easy, but I'm really happy we won.
I was getting my broadcast stuff, my internet system from the penalty boxes we set up at that part of the rink at the Hockey for All Center, had to connect into the penalty box. And I had a chance to congratulate your head coach and Eugene Kaminsky. There were tears of joy in his eyes. I'm sure that was, pretty common throughout the rest of the team, just to celebrate it with this group of girls. And not only that, but the coaching staff and the parents to do that again. How special is that?
Yeah, it was really special. Like, George, Jess, and the twins, they've been great coaches this season and in the past season. I've loved playing for them. They're always trying to get us to improve, which is good. And the group of parents, they're just amazing. They're always very supportive. And like everybody's kind of friends on the team, which is good. So yeah, it was really special.
Last season, this team travels to Regina to play against the Rebels. This season, they come here to play out the Hockey for All Center. How huge do you feel like that could be, having that home ice advantage? And not only that, knowing how much support that there truly could be in the crowd, knowing that it's a local series coming up.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be good having support from like friends and family who can actually come to the games instead of like trying to watch it over the internet. I think that'll be good. And just like having our home rink where we know and kind of like have our own space, I think that will help like with the mental side of the game. So yeah, I think yeah.
It has been truly special to be able to witness this season for this team to go back to back. Not sure when the last time it's happened in this league. I believe Pembina Valley might have been the last team to do it. But just knowing how special this run is, it could potentially come to an end or it could keep going. I guess you've kind of alluded to it already, but no matter what happens, what do you take away from these 3 years in terms of the memories and I guess using this to go forward in your hockey career?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things you can take away that I've learned a lot on this team. I've made some really good friends that I know like even after the season's done, I'm gonna keep in contact with. Just we have like such a good relationship. I think yeah, it'll be good. And yeah, no, I love this team and just like everybody on the team is like so nice and supportive. So I think that's one thing that like if I continue playing hockey, I will try and create in the dressing room is like an area where everybody can feel supported and have a friend.
Well, fantastic to hear, Laura. And of course, your work as well as your teammates' work is not done yet. We're really excited to be coming out to the Hockey for All Center this upcoming weekend to watch the rematch broadcast coverage of the Winnipeg Ice against the Regina Rebels. Best of luck, and no matter what happens, be proud of what you guys or you girls accomplished this season. Thanks for coming on the show. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And Laura Melissa, number 30, joining this edition of the MFHL podcast. Number 30 for the Winnipeg Ice, that is. And hey, her hockey career is not done yet. It was just announced recently, a few days ago, that Laura will be, yesterday actually, I believe, that Laura will be committing to play at the Milwaukee School of Engineering for the upcoming fall of 2024. Congratulations to Laura on advancing in her hockey career. And yeah, I mean, if her MFHL career is any indication on what type of player Milwaukee School of Engineering is getting, they are getting a great one in Laura Melissa. Two-time MFHL champion, of course, getting the crease throughout these playoffs for every single game except for Game 2 against the Central Plains Capitals, where Bailey Grunwald was in net. And yeah, great to hear that the relationship between the two has also been fantastic. It's what it takes, not only having a great locker room, but having a good goaltending tandem as well, both on the ice and off the ice. And yeah, this Winnipeg Ice team, when taking a look at how they fared last season in both of the games that they played in, they lost the first one 4-3 in OT, gave up quite a few shots, almost 50 at that, but then Winnipeg ended up settling down, you can see there, to a huge third period to force OT, but they got down behind the 8 ball in that one. I'm not too sure who scored first in this game, but very close. Every single period was tied up until that first OT, where Regina booked their way into the ESO Cup pool by winning the West Regionals last season. But as you can see there, the Winnipeg Ice played a much better game defensively in Game 2 to beat that Regina Rebels team. And speaking of the Regina Rebels, they ended up switching head coaches, coaching staffs. As the season ended up going along, some stuff went down, and it ended up giving Kim Perik a chance to be a head coach again for this Regina Rebels team. Kim, a man who has, been to the ESO Cup before, as you'll come to learn in this interview, talked about this year's team, the adversity that the Regina Rebels went through, even though, they end up winning 24 straight, losing your coaching staff and getting a new one. That's some adversity. They also won 2 close games to make it through to the finals. So we talk about the little adversity they faced, the group that they have, how impressive it's been to coach this team, and as well as the upcoming West Regionals, what Kim expects out of this Winnipeg Ice team. That's coming up next year on the final interview in this MFHL podcast, episode 18 edition of the ESO Cup West Regional Special here on G-Show Productions. Kim Perik joining me next. And sorry, I'm going to just phonetically write out the last pronunciation of your name.
Sure.
You say it again, please.
Got it. Kim Perik. Yep. God bless the Ukrainians in this world, Graham.
All right, well, let's start now. Well, it's not a Manitoba team that we're going to be talking about now. It's the team that's going to be playing the winner of the MFHL champions, the Winnipeg Ice. Regina Rebels head coach Kim Perik. Kim, it's great to have you on the show. You were telling me beforehand that this isn't your first time coaching the Regina Rebels. For however you want to explain it, give a sense to how it came to be where you ended up taking over this team, leading them, or I guess guiding them to their second straight West Regional Series.
Thanks, Graham. Happy to be here. I have previous coaching experience with the Rebels. I guess it would have been between, 5-6 years ago. I had them for 4 years, and a great experience. My daughter was on the team. We were pretty fortunate to have a real good group of Regina kids. We had won the MAC tournament, the first Regina team to be fortunate enough to win that, and then we were able to go on to for a couple provincial titles and certainly attend the SO Cup, which was a great experience for everyone involved. Currently, I've been out of coaching. I do a lot of work with Hockey Canada and Hockey Saskatchewan. And when the current Hockey Regina had asked me if I'd be willing to guide the team to the end of the year, I certainly thought about it, but certainly was excited to work with such an exciting group of young girls.
Yeah, and I mean, you take over a team that ends up finishing 26-3-1 in the regular season, a 20-game win streak, finishing even better than last season, where this team ended up winning the league, of course, and then qualifying for the SO Cup. Obviously, there were some players that didn't return from that team, but a good group of returning players returning. So to speak about what it was like taking over for this group that had so much experience already, and also a good mix of rookies as well.
Well, I think certainly a lot of the credit goes to the girls themselves. There's a real strong leadership group amongst our team and dressing room. And I think that, anytime there's changes like this as a staff coming in, I think we need to trust the process and what's been successful, build on those things. A few things we needed to adjust, but certainly to build on the team strengths. And I think a lot of credit goes to the current players, the leadership group, and a real good coaching staff that I'm blessed to work with.
Yeah, and I mean, talk about how this current coaching staff that is guided by you now taking over to finish off the season. I mean, that's some adversity coming in for this team. I mean, obviously with the returning players they had, but just talk about what it was like sitting back and seeing how this group responded to that type of adversity to still play at their highest level, going on a 20-game win streak to truly clinch first place.
Well, I think one of the things that I think was the biggest challenge is that and I think the girls were very, very well aware of it. There's a significant difference between the regular season and playoffs. We did have a bye in the first round, which is good and bad. The benefits were we as a staff were able to do get to know the players and systems, and just kind of get a little bit of a better understanding as to what's most what's worked so well. But when you get into the playoffs and a best of three, you don't have a lot of breathing room. And we got up against a really, really well coached North Battleford team, which we ended up having two very, very close games with 2 1-goal victories. And as far as the finals go, Notre Dame seemed to play very, very well in the playoffs, peak at the right time, and they upset Saskatoon Stars, which were, I think, certainly the other real competitive team in the province. I know they had beat the Rebels 3 times in the year. They handed the Rebels the 3 league losses. So anyways, it you can look at it in one way as perhaps maybe not the team we expected to meet in the final, but Notre Dame is very, very well coached. Of course, they're very tough to win in their building. And I think it took all of our efforts right from our goaltender on to be successful there. So it was a real tough provincial. Both rounds are very difficult, but I think when you have a record like we do, you're expected to win, and we did. But it was very difficult, which I think will help us moving forward here.
Yeah, and just taking a look at the league this season, there were way more teams over 500 last year compared to this season. So obviously there wasn't as much, I guess, parity within the league. But like you said, going up against a Battleford's North Stars team, that of course was very well coached, like you said, hungry to beat this team. I guess was that huge in this team being able to, get that scare out of the way to move on to the finals? Of course, not playing against the other top dogs in the Saskatoon Stars, but just kind of putting things into perspective that, hey, we're the number 1 team, but no matter who we play, they're still going to give us a run, even though the league isn't as skilled overall by the record compared to last year to this year.
Right, right. And I think that's where sometimes the statistics are a bit skewed. I mean, there was only two teams over 500 in the Saskatchewan female midget AAA league. So I think the girls were aware of it. I think it's certainly not nobody's fault. It had been I think it was one of the really close competitions that we had, and I think the way the girls responded right through the series, all series, it was very, very close. I think it's a credit to them. And again, I think one of the key components of it all is the good leadership and balance and depth in our lineup that we have. So it's been a lot of fun. I think every game as you move forward becomes a little bit tougher. But at the same time, I think it's anytime you're playing in April, I think you're doing something right.
No doubt about it. And a bit different this league compared to the Manitoba female U18 AAA hockey league, where they play best of 5 series in the playoffs. So a lot less room for error in terms of shorter series moving forward that way. But this team, I mean, stacked from top to bottom, just looking at the stats, returning goaltender in net as well. And Hannah Tresek was a fantastic 17-1 record, pretty solid backup of course, to a rookie and Adriana Bashnik. But, just from what you've been able to see from this team, give us a sense of what type of style, I guess, how this Regina Rebels team plays and how they can beat you.
Well, I think a lot of the way we've approached the games is really twofold. One is to focus on ourselves and build on our strengths and our identity. I think the team is very well, skates very well. I think we have depth through the lineups 1 through 3. I think our defense core are mature. We've got some returning players that are real solid, and I think at the end of the day, they play for each other and they have fun. And I think when adversity hits, like anything, you can go one of two ways. And I think the girls they're mature enough to understand it's not going to be easy. You take it shift by shift, period by period, and whatever the outcome is, game 1, you get ready for game 2. And I think that's the approach that we've emphasized this week. So,
getting through to the finals, playing against Notre Dame, being able to win in 2 games, sweeping them, winning the league last Wednesday. Talk about what that moment was like. I mean, as a coaching staff, seeing the players truly get to celebrate the accomplishment that they end up accomplishing of getting to have another chance to not only win the league, but to come back and go for another run at the West Regionals.
well, I think one of the most convenient things was Wilcox is close to Regina, so I think the rink was packed with both Notre Dame fans and students as well as the Rebel. Lots of alumni are very, very, very supportive of the Rebels from Regina. It's got a long-standing tradition, and I think it was our fans and parents and all the supporters were very loud, and I think it certainly contributed to that being so close. But I think the one thing often is the hardest thing to win a championship is when you're expected to win it, and
Right.
and I think since Christmas, no team has certainly taken them lightly. Certainly in the playoffs, we found that you're going to get the best of every team you play against. They'll play with desperation. They'll play, especially very well coached teams in our league, and I think that anything less than our best effort wouldn't have been enough. And I think that's just a credit to youth sport and female sport in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, and I mean, last year you spoke about the travel. The series ended up being in Regina for the West Regionals. This time, got to travel over here to go to Winnipeg, Manitoba to play at the Hockey for All Center. That series against the Winnipeg Ice, of course, starting 2 days from when this episode airs on Friday. And potentially games going all the way until Sunday, but like you said, you've had a chance to, guide a team to the ESO Cup before. You've been through this. So knowing that this is, yes, a newer coaching staff taking over, how huge is that you feel? Obviously, it's about the players, but for you to offer, the returning players and the rookies your knowledge in that way of what it takes to truly win a series like this, once again.
Well, I think, as much as you look back on other, certain successes, both as a player and a coach, I've been very fortunate. I think every year is different, every team's different, and I think that the most important thing is not to get too high or too low. I think that it's not going to be easy. Nobody expects it to be easy, and I think it's often how you handle adversity, how you look after yourself. Are you getting enough rest and fluids? Are we staying healthy? We've got a deep roster. We're planning on using our lineup. Certainly trying to create a little bit of depth. We understand too that, I mean, they've got some real good players. Just looking at the statistics and I think the one number 9. So I think number 9 is one player certainly, as we have a few, but I think their roster is very deep. I think they're very similar, and I think the important thing is just take it, shift by shift, period by period, and just trust the process.
Yeah, I mean, you're not lying about the Winnipeg Ice, especially number 9, who you're referring to, Stephanie Jacob. What a season she had. And yeah, I mean, these are two teams that on paper, very deep, two teams with fantastic defensive cores, and two teams with really good goaltending tandems. This Winnipeg Ice team, they're coming into this motivated. I mean, obviously this group of girls on the Regina Rebels will be too, but this Winnipeg Ice team lost in 2 close games last year, 2 1-goal games in Regina. So, the experiences they've had, of course, Eugene Kaminsky has been a vet, taking that into account. Have you kind of been talking to the girls about that, in that sense that this Winnipeg Ice team, yeah, you've beat them before last season, but they're going to be coming with more experience this season of actually going through that last year, and going to give a really good test potentially to this Regina team.
Yeah, I think the girls. I mean, it's a small world, and it's an even smaller hockey world. I think that a lot of our players have been involved in provincial, interprovincial, games and tournaments with Sask first. And I mean, the internet is often our friends when it comes to looking at statistics and that. I think sometimes the kids are more in tune to what's happening than the rest of us. But I think what it comes down to is respect. I think that when you get, not very seldom, you get the top team in 2 provinces playing off, ourselves in the ice. So I think it's going to be a really close series. I think that the only pressure we put on is ourselves. We're going to travel up on Thursday, get settled in. We're going to, go take a look at the rink and, trying to get a little bit acclimatized for that on Friday morning. And certainly we'll do our best to win.
Well, it's going to be quite the show put on at the Hockey for All Center. Regina coming to town, Kim Perik and his squad looking to head back to the Esso Cup in Vernon, BC. Kim, it's going to be fantastic, the scenes and everything. We're going to be calling all the games here on G Show Productions, so we can't wait for it. I know that you and this group of girls is excited, and best of luck coming up this weekend against the Winnipeg Ice. Looking for a second straight trip to the Esso Cup. Thanks for joining me.
My pleasure, Graham. Thank you very much.
And Kim Perik joining this edition of the MFHL podcast, crossover edition, since we will be covering the 2024 Esso Cup West Regional. This is the 2024 Esso Cup West Regional special. Man, it's going to be packed tonight at the Hockey for All Center. Not only this West Regional qualifier series going on, but on the male side too, the U18 AAAs, as they try to decide who goes to the TELUS Cup, which is the men's equivalent of the Esso Cup for the women's. But yeah, I mean, this Regina Rebels team not only looking to go back to the Esso Cup, but I assume if they make it, looking to go even further. They ended up winning bronze last season, where they ended up defeating the Northern Selects by a score of 5-1. And Greta Henderson was the top dog for this Regina Rebels squad last season. Of course, she aged out, but they still got players back like strikers, Zablocki, Brooklyn, Meagers, so many talented returning players to this squad still. So, yeah, Regina, they're prepped to potentially go back. Gotta wait to see what happens, of course, when they play the games. I'm not going to give any predictions because I haven't seen Regina play enough this season at all, actually, to give a prediction. But I've watched a lot of Winnipeg Ice hockey, and let me tell you, if there's one thing, I do think we're going to see close games once again between these two teams. The Ice having the experience of going through the losses last year, having the returning players they do back, in players like Stephanie Jacob, right? Brianne Compte, Laura Melissa getting her shot to start in this series. This Winnipeg Ice team is well prepared. Caitlin Moffat, Avery Lazarenko as well in the back end. Very experienced there, and like Ferdy said, Eugene Kaminsky not afraid to roll all of his lines, and rightfully so. The deepest team, they proved it. Proved me wrong, as I thought depth would maybe be a problem against the Westman Wildcats, but no, that wasn't the case. This Winnipeg Ice team, destined to be here, honestly. Same with this Regina Rebels team, I guess. Finishing even better than last year. Finishing with a 26-3-1 record, running the table in the playoffs, going 4-0. But yeah, just taking a look at last year, I mean, Hannah Tresick will be back in net. She went 17-1 this season. Unbelievable run for her. But yeah, as you can see there, striker Zablocki is going to be back. Brooklyn Meagers, she contributed big time. So did Striker. A player that I'm really interested to see who does well is Cadence Danzero, who finished second on this Rebels team in goals this season, as you can see, not having any points in her, I guess, debut in the West Regionals last season, as Notre Dame made the season before in the Regina, or in the Saskatchewan Female Hockey League. And yeah, this should be a very exciting series, very hard fought, and would not be surprised if we see some OT in there at least once again. But yeah, we're going to end this episode here. For you Regina Rebels fans and anyone watching from over in the province of Saskatchewan, thank you for tuning in to this edition of the MFHL podcast. If you are new here and you enjoyed this episode and want to see more of it, well, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future uploads here on the network. I want to thank Laura Melissa, Kim Perik, as well as Ferdy Nelson, and being the guests for this episode and joining me. Thank you to Mid Canada Fasteners and Tools, Terrico, and Goaltenders for being the sponsors as always in this episode. And yeah, game's going to be free to watch, all of them in this series, as it has been all season long on gshow.ca. There are other outlets that are going to be broadcasting the game, I'm pretty sure, but if you want the best quality in terms of best value for your buck, full commentary, some graphics in there, stats thrown in there, all that good stuff. We make our broadcast as best as we can to our abilities, like TSN does and Sportsnet does. Of course, we aren't them, since we don't quite have the money to have the type of equipment they do to broadcast games, but we offer something as close as we can at that. Also going to be 2 camera angles tonight, so that is very exciting in that. But I'm fired up, folks. Excited to head to the Hockey for All Center. That's what I'm going to be doing right away. For all you out there that won't be tuning in and are just going to be enjoying the weekend, have a wonderful weekend. For those of you that will be tuning into this series, or maybe will even be down at the rink at the Hockey for All Center, I think you're in for a treat this weekend. Like I said, enjoy the great weekend of hockey coming your way, everybody. Stay safe out there, but have a fantastic weekend at that. I've been your host, Graham the G Show Forsyth, once again, giving you the salute, peacing out, and saying so long, MFHL fans and Saskatchewan female U18 AAA hockey fans. Take care, everybody.